The road to this point in my life has been rough and unforgiving. Growing up in a modest home, I learned early that life doesn't hand out success. You fight for it. My parents worked tirelessly to give us what little they could, and their sacrifices taught me the importance of persistence. Though we didn't have much, love and hard-earned lessons shaped me into who I am today. After finishing school, I entered the workforce with high hopes, determined to carve out a future. My career was anything but smooth. Setbacks and obstacles came at me relentlessly. Yet each failure only strengthened my resolve. Somewhere along the way, I met Amanda. For a while, I thought she was the answer to my prayers. Our relationship, however, was a storm in disguise. Love and trust turned to betrayal, teaching me lessons I never wanted to learn. The end of our marriage didn't bring relief. It only opened the door to new struggles, each more painful than the last. Now, as I sit crammed into this noisy airplane seat, I realize just how far I've fallen. I like to think I'm wise, but the truth is, I'm broken. My confidence is in ruins, my health is failing, and I've lost all faith in fairness. At least the view from 15,000 feet is breathtaking, though even that feels hollow. In 30 minutes, this plane will land at Charlie's Lodge, my temporary refuge. After days of scouring the internet, I found it, a place promising solitude and escape. The website description felt like it was calling to me. Nestled on the edge of a remote Canadian lake, surrounded by wildlife and serene beauty, Charlie's Lodge offers rustic cabins and unmatched fishing opportunities in the Northwest Territories. Ideal for anyone seeking peace or a place to hide. That last part sold me. I called immediately and booked my stay. The float plane left Yellowknife an hour ago, and now it bounces through the air toward my so-called sanctuary. It's my first time on a plane this small, and the experience is unnerving. There are 8 seats, 1 pilot, and no other passengers, just me and a pile of boxes. The engine noise drowns out everything, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I try to focus on the view of the snow-capped peaks, but my mind keeps dragging me back to the events that led me here. Until a month ago, I was married to Amanda, the most admired woman in our small Pennsylvania town of Henley. Amanda was stunning, and people couldn't believe she married a guy like me. She came from wealth, her father Bob Thornton being the town's wealthiest man. My dad had worked in Bob's factory for years, so marrying Amanda felt like crossing into another world. 5 years ago, I moved from the working-class side of town to her side, believing I'd found happiness. 2 years ago, we had Emma, the light of my life. She calls me Dada, and I've always called her my little angel. Being her father was the greatest joy I'd ever known. Amanda and I both worked for her father's company, me as an accountant, Amanda as a customer relations assistant. But her father, Bob, loomed large over everything. He was on his 4th wife, a trophy named Margaret, and he controlled our town like a king. If you crossed him, he made sure you regretted it. 3 months ago, my world shattered. I discovered that Emma isn't my biological daughter. She still calls me Dada, and I love her as much as ever, but the DNA test left no room for doubt. I hadn't taken the test out of suspicion. I was trying to protect her. My sister had died of a congenital heart defect, and I wanted to ensure Emma didn't face similar risks. But instead of answers about her health, I uncovered the truth about Amanda. I didn't tell Amanda about the test. When the results came back, I couldn't breathe. Desperate for answers, I turned to a college friend, a private investigator. What he found was worse than I could have imagined. Amanda had been seeing another man even before we got married. Armed with proof, I filed for divorce, thinking the truth would free me. Instead, it destroyed me. Amanda denied everything, and her father threw his full weight behind her. In court, my evidence wasn't enough. Despite the DNA test, I was ordered to pay child support for Emma. I lost my home, my job, and worst of all, my time with Emma. My visitation was reduced to 1 supervised weekend a month. Amanda didn't even bother to show up for most of the hearings. It was just me and my overmatched lawyer facing Bob's high-powered legal team. When it was over, I had nothing left but bitterness. The worst part wasn't losing my home or my career. It was losing Emma. She's the only good thing in my life, and now I'm barely allowed to see her. Amanda and her father took everything from me, leaving me to spiral into depression. That's how I ended up here, in this cramped seat on a plane heading to nowhere, hoping Charlie's Lodge might be the fresh start I so desperately need. Before I left town, The Thornton factory mysteriously burned down. I didn't do it, but I was there with marshmallows in hand, enjoying the irony. Now I'm in this noisy float plane, headed toward what I hope will be a refuge. When we landed, I stepped onto a creaky dock and took my first look at Charlie's lodge. This isn't what I expected, I muttered. The pilot, unloading boxes, smirked. Yeah, people say that a lot when they first get here. It grows on you. The scenery was beautiful. Lake, mountains, endless greenery. But the lodge itself was far less impressive. It looked like an oversized log cabin with a dirt path leading to a weathered porch. Dragging my bags up the trail, I realized I probably should have read some reviews first. Inside, a gravelly voice greeted me from somewhere behind the counter. May I help you? Yes, I replied, stepping closer. My name's Ethan Carter. I have a reservation for one of your cabins. Ah, Mr. Carter. Been expecting you, said the lanky, silver-haired man as he straightened up. Name's Charlie Foster. I own this place. Yeah, my parents were big John Foster fans. I don't swagger like him. I limp. He laughed at his own joke, then eyed me knowingly. Your reservation says long-term. Hiding from the wife? Huh? That's fine with me, as long as you're not hiding from the law. No legal trouble, I assured him. Just domestic issues. I need some time alone and don't want to be found. Fair enough, Charlie said with a nod. We close for the winter in October, but you can stay till then. The cabins are up the road, past the hill. It's a bit of a hike with luggage. You'll only have one neighbor this time of year. Breakfast is at 8, and we'll figure out dinner arrangements then. Need anything? Check the bulletin board or ring the bell on the porch. Oh, and here's your key, cabin number 2. Best view of the lake. Thanks, I said, glancing at the key. Is there a phone or cell service here? Nope. Too remote for that. We have a radio for emergencies or supply orders, though. Supplies come in by plane since there's no road to the lake. Great, I muttered, already regretting this decision. See you at breakfast. The walk to the cabin felt endless. Up the road turned out to be a steep, pine-lined climb, and the cabin itself was just as rustic as advertised. Small, with a single bedroom and a cramped bathroom. It was less space than a bargain motel room, but it had the one thing I needed most, privacy. I stepped out onto the tiny front porch to check the view, prepared for disappointment. Instead, I was blown away. The lake stretched out before me, shimmering blue and framed by dense greenery. Snow-capped mountains formed a massive, protective bowl around the water, making the whole place feel untouched by civilization. Unbelievable, I whispered. Yes, it is, said a soft voice behind me. I turned to see a woman emerging from the trees. She was short and slender, with warm cocoa-colored skin, dark eyes, and a ponytail. She wore jeans, a red flannel shirt, and oversized boots, carrying a pail of water like she'd stepped out of an old nature ad. Hi, you must be my new neighbor, she said with a friendly smile. I'm Isabella Cruz. Cabin 1, just through the trees. Charlie said someone was arriving today. Hi, I'm Ethan Carter, I said, feeling oddly self-conscious. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, Ethan. Staying long? She asked, tilting her head curiously. Most of the summer, I think. What about you? I asked, genuinely interested. Not sure yet. I just needed to get away, she admitted, her voice tinged with sadness. What brings you here? Doesn't seem like you're here for fishing. Same reason as you, I said simply. Needed to escape. Got it. Well, see you around, she said with a wave, heading back into the woods. As I watched her leave, I couldn't help but notice how graceful she looked, even in those clunky boots. For the first time since Amanda, I felt a spark of interest in someone. It wasn't just her looks, though she was beautiful. Something about her felt easy, familiar, like she belonged here as much as the trees and the lake. At breakfast the next morning, eggs, sausage, toast, and coffee. I scanned the room for Isabella but didn't see her. 2 other guests, clearly fishermen, sat near me, dressed in vests covered with flies. I turned to Charlie, who was clearing plates. Hey, Charlie, where's Isabella? I asked casually. Anna? She ate early and went to work, Charlie replied. She's out past your cabin, sitting on a bench and watching birds. Girl doesn't want to be around people much. Something's bothering her, but she won't tell me. Maybe she'll talk to you. I've got enough problems of my own, I said, shaking my head. No room in my life for someone else's baggage. Well, do what you want, Charlie said with a shrug. But if I were younger, I'd try. Prettiest woman we've had here since my Louisa passed. Thanks, Charlie. I'll think about it, I said, heading back to my cabin. The plan was to rest for a bit, but I must have been more exhausted than I thought. I slept through most of the day. When I woke up, it was already dark. Groggy, annoyed, and starving. I stumbled toward the kitchen when I heard a knock at the door. Knock, knock, came Isabella's voice through the screen. Hello, Mr. Carter, Isabella said as I rubbed the sleep from my eyes. Hi, I replied. Just waking up. Guess the mountain air got to me. How are you? I'm fine, she said with a warm smile. I made some soup and thought you might join me. It's pretty quiet up here, aside from the bear that visits in the mornings. I'd enjoy the company. Bear? I asked, startled. Don't worry. He just scavenges for food. You'll get used to it, she said lightly. Well, I'd enjoy some company too. Your soup sounds great. Let me clean up and I'll stop by in about an hour, I replied, watching her walk away with a pail of water. There was something graceful about her movements, her ponytail swaying with each step. As I got ready, I realized how surreal this felt. Yesterday, I was in Pennsylvania, drowning in misery. Today, I'm in Canada with a stunning woman inviting me over for dinner. For the first time in months, I felt good. Knock, knock. Hello, neighbor, I said, arriving at her door. Mr. Carter, you're early, she teased, smiling. You should know better than to show up early at a woman's place. I'm not ready yet. Give me a few minutes. I can leave if you'd like, I offered, stepping back. No, no. Sit on the porch. The view's not as nice as yours, but it's still pretty spectacular, she said, flashing another smile. Oh, and call me Isabella. And you can call me Ethan, I replied, settling on her porch. The mountains across the lake seemed close enough to touch, though they were likely a day's hike away. The air smelled of pine and whatever delicious meal she was cooking. Okay, Ethan, soup's on, Isabella called, ushering me inside. She changed into a light blue blouse and dark slacks that hugged her figure perfectly. Her hair was loose, falling softly over her shoulders. She looked effortlessly beautiful, and for a moment, I just stared. Ethan, wake up. Here's your soup, she said, snapping me out of my daze. Sorry, I was distracted by the view, I stammered, embarrassed. Flatterer, she said, handing me a bowl. It's nothing fancy, but it's edible. All I have is water. Hope that's okay. Perfect, I replied, grateful for the company as much as the meal. We spent the next hour eating and sharing the basics of our lives. I talked about Pennsylvania, my work as an accountant, and my daughter Emma. She told me about Texas and how she wasn't working right now. She had no children, no husband. It was all surface level, but it felt like a start. Ethan, Isabella asked softly, why are you here? You don't seem like a fisherman. This place is remote. Are you trying to get away from something? It's a long story, I replied, deflecting. Painful, too. I'm not ready to talk about it. Sorry. I didn't mean to pry, she said, her voice apologetic. That's okay. What about you? I asked, redirecting. Same thing. Long story. Not ready to share, she said, hesitating. Then she added with a smile, your cabin has the better view. Maybe next time, we can eat there. I'd like that, I replied. Thanks for dinner. Your soup was incredible, especially given that tiny burner you're working with. Glad you liked it, she said, standing. Will I see you at breakfast? Of course. Have a good night, I said, walking back to my cabin. As I settled in, I watched the sunset over the lake. The scenery was breathtaking, the sounds of nature soothing. For the first time in a long while, I felt a hint of peace. Breakfast the next morning was basic, eggs, sausage, and coffee, but having Isabella there made it special. After refilling our mugs, Charlie leaned over. I'm taking the fishermen out on the lake. You two okay on your own? I glanced at Isabella. We'll be fine. Maybe we'll take that nature walk from the website, I joked. She laughed as we left the lodge. Ethan, that nature walk is just the path between the dock and the cabins. Pretty, wasn't it? Stunning, I replied, grinning at her humor. What's on your agenda today? Not much, she said. I usually sit on the bench by the hill or the dock and watch the birds. When the seaplane comes, I help Charlie unload supplies. He never asks, but I like to pitch in. He's been kind, giving me a break on rent. I can't afford much right now. Charlie seems like a character, I said. He is, she replied with a fond smile. He's 76, been alone since his wife died 20 years ago. This place keeps him going. Mind if I join you by the lake? I asked. It would be my honor, she said with a playful curtsy. We walked to the lake and found 2 old rocking chairs near the shore. For a while, we sat quietly, the only sound the gentle lapping of the water. Then, I noticed Isabella wiping away tears. What's wrong? I asked gently. Nothing, she replied, trying to smile. That's not true. Did I say something? What can I do? I pressed, genuinely concerned. I'm sorry, she said after a pause. I have a lot on my mind. I don't want to burden you with my problems. You're here with your own worries. You can't add more problems to the pile I already have, I said with a small smile. Sometimes talking helps. If you want to share, I'll listen. Maybe I can help. It's kind of you, she said, hesitating. But it's complicated, personal, embarrassing. How can I tell a stranger my problems? Let's trade stories, I suggested. I'll tell you something about me, then you share something about you. No pressure. We'll go slow. She considered this for a moment, then nodded. Okay, slow. I'll be an open book if you want to talk, I offered. No judgment, just listening. Okay, Anna agreed cautiously, but you go first. Where to start? Usually the beginning is best, I said, already unsure how much to share. Taking a breath, I began. I was born and raised in Henley, Pennsylvania, on the working-class side of town. My dad worked in a factory, and my mom stayed home. I have an older brother and sister who both moved away years ago. After I earned a master's in finance from Penn State, I moved back home to help my mom after my dad had a heart attack. That's when I met Amanda, a girl from the wealthier side of town. I paused, weighing my words. Her father owned the factory where my dad worked, along with most of the town. I got a job as an accountant at his company, and Amanda worked as his assistant. She was beautiful, charming, and way out of my league, or so I thought. We got married, and 2 years ago, we had Emma. I loved being her dad, but I later found out I wasn't. Anna's eyebrows lifted slightly, but she said nothing. Amanda had a lover before we got married. He's Emma's biological father. I didn't care about the DNA. I just wanted to raise her as my own. But when I filed for divorce, Amanda's father made sure I lost everything. I was fired, evicted, and cut off from Emma. Now I pay child support for a daughter I only get to see 1 weekend a month. That's why I'm here, trying to figure out how to start over. Anna's voice was soft. Did you ever talk to Amanda after the divorce? No. A restraining order kept me away from her and Emma. Her father's lawyers handled everything while I got steamrolled. My mom gave me some savings to leave town. It was supposed to be for her and Dad's retirement, but I had no choice. I want to pay them back someday, but I don't know how. Sensing my mood shift, Anna gently changed the subject. My story's similar in some ways, she began. My parents came from Mexico with my older brother and sister before I was born. We lived in Plano, Texas. My father left when I was 8, so my mom worked cleaning houses for a wealthy family. My brother was killed in Iraq, and my sister lives in San Antonio with her family. Her voice wavered for a moment. I married Ryan, a car parts salesman. At first, he was sweet and made me feel special. I had just finished culinary school and was looking for work, but he didn't want me to get a job. Said it made him feel inadequate. So, I stayed home. Over time, he became controlling, then abusive. I endured it until I realized staying with him wasn't just unhappy, it was dangerous. 2 weeks ago, I sold my car, my wedding ring, and withdrew our savings. I found Charlie's website and came here. I'm scared Ryan might find me, so I don't know what to do next. Anna, do people call you that? I asked gently. Yes. I like Anna, she replied with a small smile. Anna, we're in the same boat. Both escaping bad relationships, both unsure about the future. If you need anything to stay here and figure things out, just say the word. I've got some money, and I'd be happy to help. That's kind, she said, shaking her head. But you have your own problems. You'll need your money. Still, thank you. We sat in silence, staring out over the lake, lost in thought. A fish broke the water near the dock, and Anna laughed. Charlie thinks he knows all the best fishing spots. The mood lightened as we talked about college and childhood dreams. Penn State intrigued her, and culinary school excited me because I love food. By the time the sun was overhead, we'd shared stories about pets, friends, and old ambitions. I couldn't help but think, God, I love this place. Ethan, I'm heading to my cabin for a nap, Anna said, standing and brushing her fingers lightly across my hand. If you're up for it, I'll bring over soup tonight, and we can talk on your porch. I enjoy your company. That sounds great, I said, startled by the warmth of her touch. I watched her walk away, amazed by her grace and realizing I hadn't felt this alive in years. Later, I dozed off in my rocking chair, but woke to the sound of her voice at my door. Knock, knock. Anybody home? Come in. Let me help with that, I said, taking the pot of soup from her hands. Put it on the table, and I'll grab some bowls. Sorry, I can't offer wine, but maybe we'll add it to the next supply order. The soup was simple but delicious. I had seconds, savoring each bite. As we sat on the porch, content and full, Anna teased. You look like a man ready to sleep with a full stomach. Where did you learn to cook like this? I asked, genuinely impressed. My mother taught me. When she was young, she worked for a wealthy family and made do with whatever ingredients she could find. She used to call it hobo stew. I just add my own touch. We shared a quiet moment, watching squirrels chase each other under the fading light. I chuckled. An after-dinner show. Perfect. Anna smiled, but then her face turned serious. Ethan, you said your marriage ended when you learned the truth about your daughter. What did you mean? Taking a deep breath, I answered, I was married to Amanda for 5 years, never knowing she had a secret lover. I was too blind to see the signs. When I got the DNA results, I knew Amanda had been having an affair. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was undeniable. I began. I reached out to an old college friend, Tyler, a private investigator in D.C. He dug deeper and found everything. Photos, videos, proof that Amanda and her lover had been together since college. I felt like a fool. I'm so sorry, Ethan, Anna said, her voice full of empathy. What she did to you is unforgivable. She's the cow. Sorry, sometimes my Spanish slips out. You're not wrong, I said with a bitter laugh. But I'm not sure I even want revenge. I just want to move on and get away from her and her father's control. Still figuring it out. Anna stood to take the dishes inside. When she returned, I quickly wiped a tear from my cheek, but I knew she saw it. Talking about it brings it all back, I admitted. I loved Amanda. I can't wrap my head around how she could betray me like that. You know what it's like when someone you love isn't who you thought they were. Anna's eyes met mine, filled with understanding. She placed her hand on mine. Ethan, I feel comfortable with you. I want to share something personal, but it's hard. Please be patient with me. Take your time, I said gently. I'm here to listen. She took a deep breath. My marriage started beautifully, but it turned into a nightmare. At first, Ryan was sweet, but the signs were subtle. He became rough during intimacy, leaving marks and causing pain. Over time, it escalated. He started hitting me, forcing me to do things I didn't want to do. When I resisted, he threatened me. One night, he tied me to the bed, beat me until I passed out, and left me bruised and broken. That's when I realized he'd been drinking in secret. Her voice faltered, but she pushed on. He'd go through phases of being apologetic and then slipping back into violence. One day, he forced me to pose for pictures and threatened to share them if I didn't comply. Another night, he came home drunk and beat me so badly I couldn't walk. A neighbor knocked on the door, but he lied, saying I'd fallen. Afterward, he held a knife to my throat and told me I'd regret ever telling anyone. I sat frozen, my heart pounding with anger and sadness for her. She was looking down, but her words were steady. I finally gathered the courage to leave. I sold my car, my wedding ring, and drained our savings. That's how I came here. But every day, I'm terrified he'll find me. Jesus Christ, I said, my voice shaking. I thought my life was bad, but what you've been through. My hands trembled, and I felt a surge of rage toward the monster she described. Anna reached for my hand, pressing it to her cheek with a soft smile. Thank you, Ethan. You don't know how much it means to have someone listen. We held hands for a long moment before she stood. I should take the dishes back to my cabin. I'll see you at breakfast, she said, her voice lighter now. After she left, her story replayed in my mind. The images so vivid they made it impossible to sleep. I lay awake for hours, haunted by what she'd endured. The next morning, I dragged myself to breakfast, my reflection in the mirror confirming how terrible I looked. Bloodshot eyes, drooping shoulders. Charlie poured me a coffee, eyeing me knowingly. "Rough night?" he asked. "Got any aspirin?" I mumbled. "Thin Mountain Air'll get to you. Take it easy for a couple days," he said, setting a couple pills next to my cup. Anna walked in, her cheerful greeting lighting up the room. "Good morning, Charlie," she said, kissing his cheek and making him blush. Then she looked at me. "Good God, you look awful. What happened?" "Thin Mountain Air," Charlie chimed in. "He'll be fine in a couple days." Anna frowned. "Are you sure you're okay?" "I'll live." Charlie suggested I take a boat out on the lake today. "I haven't been fishing since I was a kid." "Maybe you shouldn't go alone," she said. "I don't know much about fishing, but I can keep you company." "That might be nice," I admitted. "Got any sunblock?" "I'll check with Charlie," she replied with a smile. We sat together, eating Charlie's usual breakfast of eggs, bacon, and toast. As we finished, I turned to Anna. "You seem happier this morning. Did talking last night help?" "Maybe it did," she said thoughtfully. "The old preacher was right. Confession is good for the soul." "I feel more relaxed today," Anna said thoughtfully as we walked toward the dock. "Maybe there's something to this idea of sharing your troubles. You're my friend, right? I mean, I did dump a lot on you yesterday." "Of course, I'm your friend," I assured her. "And don't worry about it. I can handle it." At the dock, Charlie was waiting. "I'll have one of the boats ready for you, too. Take it out whenever you're ready," he said with a wave. "Thanks, Charlie," I replied as Anna slipped her hand into mine. By 10 o'clock, we were at the boat. She wore a simple white long-sleeved shirt, blue jeans, and a white baseball cap, her ponytail tucked through the back. She looked radiant, and her smile only made it better. "I found sunblock in Charlie's supply cabinet," she said, handing me the bottle. "How are you feeling now?" "Better. A day on the lake with you is just what I need," I said, feeling surprisingly lighthearted. We got the motor started after a few tries and puttered across the lake, stopping in a spot where we could see all sides. The lodge looked tiny from here, surrounded by the towering mountains. Charlie had set us up well, with poles ready and a small box of bait. "Let's at least pretend we know what we're doing," I joked, baiting a hook and handing the rod to Anna. She mimicked my movements and dropped her line over the side. "Now what?" she asked. "Just wait and be patient," I replied. We sat quietly for a few minutes, enjoying the view. Then Anna spoke, her voice softer. "Ethan, I didn't think much about what I was doing yesterday when I told you my story. I didn't even tell you everything, and I feel like I added my problems to yours." "I'm sorry." "You don't have to apologize," I said gently. "If anything, I'm glad you told me. Honestly, I thought about it a lot last night. What you've been through, it's horrific. I look at you now and can't imagine how anyone could ever hurt you. You're delicate, kind, and beautiful. It's monstrous." Her eyes widened slightly. "Did you just call me beautiful?" "Yes. Any man in his right mind would see it," I said, meeting her gaze. "And what I see inside you is just as beautiful. You're strong and fragile at the same time." "Thank you," she said softly, visibly touched. "I haven't been called beautiful in a long time. There really are a lot of stupid people in this world. Thank you for not being one of them." Suddenly, her rod jerked. "What was that?" she exclaimed. "That's a nibble," I explained. "Hold on to the rod, but don't grip it too tightly. Let's see if it comes back." We watched intently, but the rod stayed still. "Relax, he's gone," I said, smiling at her disappointment. "Can I tell you something?" she asked, glancing at me. "Anything," I replied. "You make me feel like a princess," she said softly. "You are a princess," I said, smiling. Her face lit up, and she slid closer to me, putting her hand on mine and resting her head on my shoulder. We sat like that, quietly taking in the lake. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. Then her rod jerked violently downward. "Hey, are friends back?" I said, handing it to her. "Hold on tight and start reeling it in. I don't know what I'm doing." "Help me," she pleaded. "Just hold the rod steady, plant the back end in your hip, and reel slowly," I instructed. She followed my guidance, and soon the line pulled taut, bending the rod. After a moment, a massive splash broke the surface. "Holy crap!" she exclaimed, wide-eyed. "Keep reeling. I'll get the net," I said, dipping it into the water and pulling out a huge lake trout. "Look what you caught. He's a beauty." Anna stared in shock. "I know what we're having for dinner tonight," she said, laughing. "You called your soup heaven provides. Well, heaven just provided dinner." I put the fish in the cooler, grinning. "Wait till Charlie sees this. He'll keel over." Still overwhelmed, Anna suddenly jumped up and threw her arms around my neck, rocking the boat. "Whoa, sit down before we both go swimming," I said gently. "Sorry," she said sheepishly, sitting back down. "I've never caught a fish before." "Let's see if he has any relatives down there," I said, rebaiting her hook. Sitting beside her, I wrapped an arm around her shoulder. She leaned into me, wrapping her arms around my chest. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" I asked. "For making me feel happy again," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. We sat quietly, holding each other. The lake was still, the air crisp, and for the first time in a long while, I felt whole. I kissed the top of her head, resting my cheek against her hair as the moment stretched peacefully. When we returned, Charlie's jaw dropped at the sight of the trout. "Holy Mother of God, where did you get that?" he bellowed. "The little lady snagged him," I said proudly. "I had no idea what I was doing. Ethan just coached me after he was hooked," Anna said modestly. "Did you do okay?" "That's a record trout for this lake," Charlie exclaimed, inspecting the fish. "I bet he's over 40 pounds. We've got to get a picture of you two with this beast before we fillet him. You're going on the bulletin board." Anna smiled shyly as Charlie fetched the camera, and for once, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. We walked up to the lodge, still smiling and talking about the big catch. Charlie grabbed his camera and took pictures of Anna proudly holding the trout. We laughed as we looked through them. "You two are eating fine tonight," Charlie said. "I'll get this beauty ready. Be here at 6. Dinner's on me." Anna and I walked back to the cabins, holding hands, our worries momentarily forgotten. When we reached my cabin, I turned her gently toward me, placing my hands around her waist. The mountains framed her in the background as I leaned in to kiss her softly. "Ethan, I can't," she said, pulling back, her body trembling. "Hey, what's wrong?" I asked, lifting her chin to meet her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaking. "Your touch brought back memories of Ryan. He hurt me in ways I didn't realize still affected me. I know you wouldn't, but—" "Shoo," I interrupted gently. "I understand. I shouldn't have pushed you." "It's not you. It's me," she said, her voice cracking. "When you kissed me, it triggered those awful memories of his abuse. I'm so sorry." "It's okay," I reassured her. "I'm here when you're ready. You know I'd never hurt you, right?" She nodded. "I know. Please, just hold me." I wrapped my arms around her, holding her as she trembled against my chest. Gradually, her breathing slowed, and she began to relax. She felt so small, so fragile, and I silently vowed to protect her from any more pain. A bird chirped nearby, breaking the silence. When we turned to look, it flew off, leaving her face soft with a shy smile. Her dark eyes locked on mine, and then she leaned up to kiss me gently, barely a touch. She pulled back, her smile widening, and time seemed to stop. "Thank you," she said, and kissed me again, this time with more purpose. Her warmth melted the remaining tension between us. "There's nothing like a first kiss," I murmured. "Except the second," she replied with a smile, leaning in for a deeper one. We stayed close for a while, letting the moment linger, before parting to get ready for dinner. Tap, tap, tap. "Hello? Anyone home?" I teased as I knocked on her cabin door. "Come on in." "I'm almost ready," Anna called from the bathroom. When she stepped out, I couldn't help but stare. She wore a cheerful yellow print top and a black skirt with sandals, her hair swept into a side ponytail. "You're beautiful," I said sincerely, taking her hands. "Now I am," she replied playfully. "Let's go eat. I'm starving." As we walked down the hill, she teased, "Who brings a blazer to a fishing lodge?" She kissed my hand before intertwining her fingers with mine. Charlie greeted us with a dramatic bow. "Right this way, your table awaits," he said, leading us into the dining room. After seating us, he draped napkins over our laps with a flourish. Your meal is coming right up. Once alone, Anna broke the silence. I love Charlie. He's such a gentleman. I bet he was a heartbreaker when he was younger. Charlie returned with plates of perfectly cooked trout and fresh vegetables. My wife was the reason I lived, he said, a note of reverence in his voice. After I met her, I never looked at another woman. We were together for 30 glorious years. Her ashes are up on the hill behind your cabins. With a nod, he left us to enjoy our meal. The trout was delicious, the vegetables perfectly tender. Charlie returned briefly with dessert, a pear half drizzled in chocolate, and wished us good night, leaving us in the candlelit dining room. After finishing, we sat holding hands, our conversation light and easy. This has been a perfect day, Anna said softly. Thank you for sharing it with me. It's not over yet, I replied. How about stargazing? Maybe we'll get lucky and see an aurora. Sounds perfect, she agreed. We headed back to my cabin, where the stars were breathtaking, the Milky Way's spiral arms stretching across the sky. Though there was no aurora, the vastness of the universe above us felt magical. We sat hand in hand, listening to the distant hoots of owls and the soft chirping of crickets. A sudden crack from the bushes shattered the quiet. I think we've got a visitor, I said, glancing toward the sound. Good idea, Anna said with a nervous laugh. Let's not end a perfect day by becoming a bear's dinner. We slipped inside the cabin, shutting the door firmly behind us. So, what now? I asked, raising an eyebrow. I can think of something, she said, her gaze flicking toward the bed. I stepped closer, wrapping her in my arms and kissing her deeply. The world outside melted away as we made love, our bodies and emotions fully entwined. Later, lying beside her, I noticed tears glistening on her cheeks. Anna, are you okay? What's wrong? I asked softly. She turned to me, her eyes wet but filled with joy. Oh, Ethan, everything is right. I haven't felt like this in so long. I felt loved. You loved me the whole time. It was perfect, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Phew. For a second, I thought I was losing my touch, I joked, trying to lighten the moment. Smiling through her tears, she playfully slapped my shoulder. No, you haven't lost your touch. I love your touch. Just hold me, Anna whispered. We lay in each other's arms, nuzzling quietly until we drifted off to sleep. Morning came with the sound of gentle rain pattering on the roof. Snuggled together, we listened to the soothing rhythm of the storm in each other's heartbeat. Good morning, she said softly. Good morning, beautiful, I replied, holding her closer. Do you want to skip breakfast and stay in bed all day? She teased with a smile. Sounds good to me, as long as you're here, I said. Bet on it. Just let me brush my teeth first, she said, slipping out of bed. When she returned, I couldn't help but smile at her playful energy. She laughed at the state of the bedding, then slid under the covers, pulling me into a warm embrace. The sound of the rain filled the cabin as we held each other. Ethan, she began hesitantly, I think I love you. I know it sounds crazy. We've only known each other a few days, but I feel safe with you. Comfortable. It feels right. Her words caught me off guard. Wow. Maybe it is crazy, but I feel the same. I can't let myself think about love yet. I need to fix my life first. I don't want to hurt you, Anna. Your happiness means everything to me. Stop thinking so much and just hold me, she said, smiling. We spent the day in bed, talking and sharing, making love gently and passionately. For the first time in years, the outside world faded away. We forgot about breakfast, lunch, and the storm outside. When the rain stopped the next morning, the ground was wet and muddy as we headed to breakfast. Missed you too yesterday, Charlie said with a knowing smile. Stay in bed and listen to the rain? Something like that, I replied with a grin, glancing at Anna. Charlie chuckled. Today's Tuesday, so the supply plane should arrive around noon. If you need anything special, let me know. Groceries, liquor, tools, we can arrange it. Just leave me a note. Anna's face lit up. We can get anything? Within reason, Charlie replied. The same float plane that brought me now arrived packed with supplies. Anna and I helped Charlie unload while the fishermen prepared to leave. Afterward, Charlie sat with us, sharing stories about running the lodge, the harsh winters, and the loneliness since his wife passed. That gal of yours, Anna, he said later as she cooked dinner, she's something special. There's sadness in her, but she's happier now. I hope you two hit it off. She deserves some joy. I like her a lot, Charlie, I admitted. I've got my troubles, but I won't hurt her. I promise you that. Anna brought out a steaming pot of stew and set it on the table. I call this my heaven provides stew. Hope you like it, she said with a smile. It smells divine, Charlie said, and we ate in companionable silence. Later that night, there was a knock at my door. Can I come in? Anna whispered. Of course, I said, stepping aside. I've been thinking about you. Can we combine everything and stay in one cabin? Charlie knows, and he seems okay with it. Absolutely, I said, pulling her into my arms. You shouldn't go back tonight, not with that bear out there. I just found you, Anna. I'm not letting go. She pressed against me, her arms wrapping tightly around my neck. Ethan, can I ask you something? You told me about Amanda's lover. How did you stay with her after finding out? I don't know, I admitted. I avoided her. Every time I saw her, all I could think about was the video. I stayed for Emma. I wanted to be her dad, so I put up with Amanda's lies. I spent as much time with Emma as I could, at the park, on errands. I just kept my distance from Amanda and planned my escape. And when you filed for divorce? Anna asked. Everything exploded. Her father made it impossible for me. I've told you most of it, but the worst parts, I can't even say them out loud. After I found out about her betrayal, I was so sick I threw up. I knew then I had to get away from her and her family. Then don't think about her anymore, Anna said gently. Come here. Hold me. Let's leave her in the past. I pulled her close, feeling her warmth chase away my lingering anger. I looked into her dark, kind eyes and kissed her tenderly. Thank you for being here, I whispered. You remind me there are good people in this world. Ethan, she said quietly, there's more to my story. I couldn't tell you before, but I think I'm ready now. Maybe it'll help me face it. Like your preacher said, confession is good for the soul. But it's worse than what I've already told you. Can you stand to hear it? Anything for you, I said, bracing myself. Afterward, I might want to eliminate someone, but I'll listen to whatever you need to say. Her voice trembled as she began. It happened after Ryan had already started threatening me with a knife. One day, he came home high and told me to dress up, said he had a surprise for me. I put on one of my nicest dresses and found him in the living room talking to a woman named Faye, his boss. She was tall, strong-looking, with a gravelly voice. Anna paused, gripping my hand tightly. Ryan had shown her the pictures he'd taken of me, those awful pictures. She wanted to meet me. Ryan told me to entertain her and make her happy, or else. Faye told me to strip and dance for her. I was terrified, but I did what she said. When I finished, she started touching me, kissing me. Her voice broke, and I held her as she struggled to continue. I wanted to run, to scream, but Ryan just sat there, watching, smiling. That was the day I realized I had to leave. I had to escape, or I wouldn't survive. Tears streamed down her face, and I tightened my hold on her. Anna, I'm so sorry, I said, my voice raw with emotion. I can't imagine the strength it took to get out of that nightmare. Thank you for listening, she whispered. It helps. It really does. You're safe now, I said firmly, and you're not alone anymore. I cried, and Ryan got angry, Anna continued, her voice trembling. He dragged me to the bedroom and told Faye I was hers. She did terrible things to me while Ryan watched, smiling. After she left, Ryan forced himself on me and then told me his plans. Faye wanted to come back, and in exchange, she gave him a valuable account at work. Her voice cracked as she continued. He showed my pictures to his friends, saying I'd entertain them for money. He wanted to pimp me out. She choked on the words. That's when I knew I had to leave. The next day, I packed what I could and ran. Anna's voice faltered, and tears streamed down her face as she stared blankly ahead. Her body trembled, and she broke into sobs. I pulled her into my arms and held her tightly. You're safe now, I whispered. I'll take care of you. I'll love you. She clung to me, crying into my shoulder. Eventually, her sobs slowed, and she fell asleep in my arms. The next morning, she looked at me softly. Did you say you loved me last night? She asked. Yes, I did, I admitted. What you told me was horrific. You didn't deserve any of it, and I'll make sure you never suffer like that again. I think I've fallen in love with you, Anna. Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they were happy. God, I'm so happy. Thank you, Ethan. My prayers have been answered, she said. Then, smiling, she added, but I really need to pee. Let's grab breakfast after. At breakfast, I turned to Charlie. You know, you could use a full-time cook. Anna's incredible and could help you. I'll think about it, Charlie replied. We've got 8 guests arriving today on the supply plane. Let's see how things go. After breakfast, I asked Charlie how to make a phone call. He explained that the lodge only had a radio patched through to Yellowknife. It wasn't cheap, and he offered his credit card to avoid leaving a trace on mine. Put it on my bill, I told him, grateful. Hello? Came the voice on the other end. Hi, Mom, it's Ethan, I said. Oh my God, Ethan. Where are you? What's happening? They're looking for you, she said, her voice a mix of relief and worry. After the factory burned down, Mr. Thornton blamed you. There's a warrant for your arrest, and the FBI even talked to us. Mom, I didn't do anything. I don't know how Thornton pinned this on me, but I had nothing to do with the fire, I said urgently. What about the package I gave you? It's safe, she reassured me. I hid it in the basement behind the jars of peaches. Emma's fine too. Amanda came by with her, saying she wanted to talk to you. I don't want to talk to Amanda, I said firmly. I just care about Emma. Ethan, was it really that bad? Mom asked, her voice softening. Is there any way to work things out for Emma's sake? Mom, Amanda was having an affair our entire marriage. There's more to it, but I can't explain now. Trust me, I did everything I could, I said, trying to stay calm. Okay, I trust you, she said. Ethan, are you okay? You sound different. I've met someone, I admitted. Her name is Anna. She's been through a lot too, but I'm happy for the first time in years. I can't come home yet, but I'll figure something out. I just wanted you to know. Oh, Ethan, I'm so happy for you, she said, her relief palpable. You deserve to be happy. Call us when you can. I love you, son. I love you too, Mom. Bye, I said, ending the call. As I hung up, my mind raced. The FBI was looking for me. Thornton had framed me, and I had no way to fight back. What about Emma? And Anna? How could I keep us safe while trying to build a future? What a mess, I muttered. That afternoon, the supply plane arrived, bringing 8 well-dressed men with expensive fishing gear. Charlie greeted them warmly. Welcome back, gentlemen. Ninth year here, right? Everything's the same, except the fishing's even better. You should have seen the monster caught yesterday. We helped carry their luggage to the lodge before the men headed out to fish. Anna joined Charlie in the kitchen to prepare dinner. She filleted the fish, steamed vegetables, and created a pear cranberry crisp for dessert. The new guests were thrilled with the meal. One of them, a restaurant owner, stood up after dinner. Madam, he said, addressing Anna, we want to compliment you on dinner. Everything was delightful. I own a string of restaurants, and none of our chefs could match what we just ate. If you ever want to leave here and work for me, you have a standing invitation. Anna blushed but smiled graciously. Thank you. I'll keep it in mind, she replied. Later, she came to my table, her spirits visibly lifted. The restaurant owner approached us again, grinning. Sir, you should be proud of your wife. Anna's cheeks turned bright red, and I couldn't help but laugh. I am, I said, reaching for her hand under the table. She gave it a gentle squeeze, and for a moment, everything felt right. She's a magnificent cook, the restaurant owner said, handing Anna his card. I'm serious about my offer. Yes, she is, I agreed. But we're not married. We met here, both running from bad situations. Sorry to hear that, the man replied. Where are you from? Plano, Texas, Anna answered. Henley, Pennsylvania, I added. Another man at the table perked up. Henley? I know people there. What's your name? Ethan Carter, I said. Nope, doesn't ring a bell. Where did you work? Thornton Enterprises, I said flatly. The man's expression hardened. Now that name I know. Bob Thornton cheated me out of $1 million contract years ago. It set my business back big time. I was married to his daughter, I admitted. We're divorced now, and I'm glad to be out of that family. Another guest joined the conversation. Thornton Enterprises? I work in the Justice Department's racketeering division. We're investigating Thornton for several violations. I'd love to hear more from you. It's no surprise, I said. Thornton owns everything in Henley, including the judge who handled my divorce. After the factory burned down, I became the main suspect, and now there's a warrant for my arrest. I'm sure Thornton's behind it. A lawyer at the table chimed in. That judge sounds familiar. He's crooked, no doubt. If you're interested, I'd like to help. You've been screwed over, and I think I can help unscrew things. The Justice Department man nodded. Thornton needs to be brought down. This could be huge. A retired Army colonel, listening nearby, stood up. Sounds like you need military-style coordination. I haven't run an op since Afghanistan, but I'd love to help take down a big shot. We all agreed to gather on the porch for drinks and to brainstorm. As the discussion started, Anna stood. This is my cue to exit. Ethan, wake me when you're back and tell me all about your plans for world domination, she teased. I watched Charlie escort Anna back to our cabin, thanking her for helping with dinner and asking if she'd assist with breakfast. Once they were out of sight, we got to work. Ideas flew, and by the end of the night, we had the start of a plan. When I returned to the cabin, Anna was asleep, her face peaceful. I didn't want to disturb her, so I slipped into bed and wrapped my arms around her. That night, the aurora borealis danced across the sky, but we slept soundly, lost in each other's warmth. The next morning, Anna and I sat on the dock, the lake shimmering in the early light. Anna, I began cautiously, before I tell you about last night's discussion, I have a question. What do you want to do about Ryan? You can't go back to him. It's not safe. I've thought about divorce, she admitted, but he's so possessive. If I try, he'll come after me. You don't have to worry about that, I reassured her. The men I spoke with last night want to help. The lawyer, Alan, knows a top divorce attorney in Dallas. He's a shark. The retired colonel will handle getting Ryan to sign the papers. Everything's going to be okay. Why would strangers help me? Anna asked, her voice filled with doubt. I'm just a cook at a remote lodge. They're good people, I said simply. They see in you what I already do. Strength, kindness, and resilience. Anna smiled softly and took my hand. We sat in silence, dreaming of a future free of fear. 5 days later, we helped the fishermen load their gear onto the float plane. Anna kissed each man on the cheek, even the shy computer geek. The restaurant owner reminded her of his job offer, pressing his card into her hand. As the plane lifted off, Charlie headed back to the lodge while Anna and I took a boat out onto the lake. When will this all happen? She asked. I don't want to leave Charlie short a cook. 2 or 3 weeks, if everything goes as planned, I said. Once it's done, you'll be back here within a few days. We can even arrange a visit with your mom and sister if you'd like. I just want it over with so we can move forward, she said, leaning her head on my shoulder. Once I clean up my mess, I plan to start fresh with you, I said. Anna's hand tightened in mine, and we sat quietly, the stillness of the lake wrapping around us. 3 weeks later, we sat on our cabin porch at sunset, tense but hopeful as we discussed the trip ahead. Tomorrow, we face everything, Anna said softly, her eyes on the horizon. Yes, I replied, but when it's over, we'll be free. Despite all the careful planning, Murphy's Law lingered in my thoughts. Still, hope kept me grounded. Ethan, hold me, Anna whispered, her voice trembling. I'm so scared. If I weren't here in your arms, I'd be back there, tied to a bed and being used by everyone. I'm terrified he'll find me. Sure, that's not going to happen, I said softly, holding her tighter. You're safe now, and I'll always protect you. We sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the mountains. Her tears fell silently as I stroked her cheek, her breathing slowing as she relaxed in my arms. Anna, I said, my voice low, since you shared your whole story, I need to tell you about my final demon. It's as hard for me as it was for you. She nodded, her eyes meeting mine. When I found out Emma wasn't mine, I was furious. I wanted to eliminate Amanda and her lover. But when I discovered who her lover was, I hesitated, my throat tightening. It was her father, Bob Thornton. They'd been lovers since before our marriage. Emma is his daughter. Anna gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh my God, Ethan. That's unthinkable. How could she do something so vile? I want to strangle her for what she did to you. And poor Emma. I've kept it hidden to protect Emma, I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. If this ever came out, it would destroy her. I'd do anything to keep her safe. You're an incredible father, Anna said softly, her voice full of admiration. And as much as I hate Amanda, I'm so glad you ran from her. Because now we found each other. We kissed as the evening faded into night, walking hand in hand into the cabin. Later, as we lay in bed, Anna kissed me again. I love you, Ethan. Whatever happens, I know we'll be together forever. I love you too, I replied, holding her close. We made love, savoring every moment as if it were our last before the challenges ahead. The next morning, we said our goodbyes to Charlie. Don't worry about me, Charlie said with a smile. I've been here 20 years before you came, and we'll be here 20 more after you leave. Take care of your little darling, Ethan. Anna kissed Charlie on the cheek before we boarded the plane. As it took off, I watched Charlie wave until he disappeared from view. In Dallas, we met Anna's lawyer, Lydia Morgan, a petite, gray-haired woman who surprised me with her commanding presence. Don't let my appearance fool you, she said, smiling kindly at Anna. It works to my advantage. Opposing parties underestimate me until they regret it. Anna retold her story, tears welling as she laid everything bare. Lydia listened intently, her expression firm but empathetic. It's worse than I expected, Lydia admitted. But don't worry. You'll get your divorce and everything you deserve. After signing the papers, we drove to Anna's sister's house. Anna cried quietly in the car, her tears a mix of sorrow and relief. I keep saying thank you, don't I? She whispered, placing her hand on mine. I can't wait until this is all over. At her sister's house, Anna came alive. She laughed with her nieces and nephews, chased their big dog, and for the first time, seemed free of her burdens. Watching her transform made me love her even more. Later, her mother pulled me aside. Mr. Carter, Anna told us everything. What her husband did and about you. She loves you and says you make her feel safe. If you ever hurt her, I'll hunt you down. But if you treat her right, you'll get my 16-layer cake every Christmas. Take care of my little girl. Yes, ma'am, I said, my voice steady despite my nerves. She kissed my forehead and smiled, leaving me stunned. Each day at her sister's house brought more healing, and each night at the motel brought us closer. We made love often, savoring our time together. 5 days later, Lydia called with the news. Anna, it's done. Your husband signed the papers. Once the court processes them, it'll be final in 3 to 6 months. Until then, you're still technically married, but you can live freely. Whoever your friends are, I may need to borrow them someday. Anna's abusive marriage was officially over. That night, we celebrated with ice cream and laughter, her family joining in the joy. At the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, Anna and I held each other tightly. I'll call Charlie and leave a message when I get to my parents' house, I said. Then I'll call again with good news. Take care of yourself, Ethan, she said, her voice breaking. I love you. I love you too, I replied as our fingers touched one last time before parting. At Harrisburg Airport, I drove 2 hours to Henley, timing my arrival for dusk. Parking a block away from my parents' house, I walked through the woods to the back door and knocked softly. Who's out back knocking on that door? My dad's voice called out. It's me, Dad, I said, my voice steady but heavy with emotion. Ethan. Damn, it's Ethan, my mom exclaimed as I stepped inside. Come on in before someone sees you. Good to be home, Dad, I said, hugging him. Hi, Mom. We need to talk about what's next. Let's sit down. I need to put my feet up for a bit. I spent the evening explaining everything to my parents. They listened as I laid out the plan, laughing at the boldness of what was coming. It felt good to be back, surrounded by warmth and support. Before bed, I called Charlie and Anna, leaving them a message to let them know I was safe and everything was on track. Early the next morning, I heard the newspaper land in the driveway. Stretching in my robe and shorts, I walked out to grab it, knowing the sight would make waves. Sure enough, within 30 minutes, 3 police cars pulled up outside. Knock, knock, knock. I opened the door to find an officer staring at me. Ethan Carter, I have a warrant for your arrest. Please come out quietly. I winked at my parents and walked out, my hands cuffed behind me. The ride to the station was uncomfortable, but not painful. After being fingerprinted and placed in a cell, I settled in to wait. Before long, I heard an all-too-familiar voice bellowing through the station. Mr. Thornton stormed in, demanding to see me. Soon, he was standing in front of my cell, his face red with anger. Boy, I'll make sure you never see the light of day again. You burned down my factory, and now you've got the balls to show up here? Say goodbye to your little girl. She'll forget you ever existed. I stared at him, barely able to hide my smirk as I watched the vein on his forehead throb. Before I could respond, a frantic deputy pulled him away. Minutes later, shouting erupted from the back office. A booming voice barked, "Go get him now." The deputy returned, wide-eyed, and opened my cell. "Follow me," he said. In the office, Alan, the lawyer from Charlie's, stood with a cold glare aimed at Mr. Thornton. "Mr. Carter, are you okay?" Alan asked. "Have they treated you well?" "I'm fine," I replied, still confused. "But I'd love to know why I'm here." "We're about to clear that up," Alan said. He made a call, and moments later, a tall man in a suit entered with 2 state troopers. The man approached Thornton with a manila envelope. "Mr. Bob Thornton?" he asked. "Yes. What do you want?" Thornton snapped. "Sir, you are under arrest for tampering with government officials, racketeering, and money laundering," the man said. "Additionally, here's a lawsuit from Ethan Carter for wrongful termination and another for wrongful imprisonment against the town of Henley. Oh, and there's a warrant for your arrest on the charge of incest with Amanda Carter, your daughter. A warrant is being served on her as we speak." Thornton's face drained of color. As the officer handed me a court order dismissing all charges against me, Alan added with a smirk, "Ethan, let's go. You're a free man." Back at my parents' house, Alan shook my hand. "Good luck, Ethan. The guys wanted to give you a gift, and this is it. See you at the hearing." The next day's divorce hearing was a stark contrast to the first. Amanda arrived with only one lawyer, her once confident demeanor replaced by silence and downcast eyes. The new judge allowed the evidence of infidelity and incest, declaring her an unfit mother. I was awarded primary custody of Emma, child support, and visitation restrictions for Amanda. Though I left broke, I had what mattered most, Emma. After the hearing, I asked to speak with Amanda. "This isn't about revenge," I began. "I just wanted a divorce and to move on. But when your father tried to take Emma from me, it nearly destroyed me. Everything that's happened is your fault. I've survived because of someone who has a heart and a moral compass, things you lack. I love her, and I don't want you near Emma again. Ever." Amanda nodded, avoiding my gaze, and I walked out feeling lighter than I had in years. That night, I burned the DNA test results in my parents' backyard. The only person who ever knew the truth about Emma's father was Anna, and that's where it would stay. 2 months later, I returned to Charlie's lodge with Emma. As the float plane landed, I saw Anna on the dock, her smile as wide as the lake. I carried Emma off the plane, and Anna greeted us with a warm kiss. Emma giggled, her excitement contagious. "Welcome home," Anna said, her voice full of love. Then her expression turned serious. "Ethan, I have some bad news. Charlie had a stroke. He's recovering but needs help running the lodge." I told him I'd stay. I wrapped my arms around her. "We'll stay. This is home now, for all of us. Together, we'll take care of Charlie and our little girl." That was 5 years ago. Anna and I married the following spring, and Emma thrived at the lodge. 2 years later, we welcomed twin boys, Charlie and Foster, who now keep us on our toes. Anna is pregnant with our 4th child, a girl we plan to name Louisa. The lodge has grown into a bustling retreat, with a gourmet kitchen, expanded cabins, and solar-powered amenities. Charlie passed away last year, leaving the lodge to us. His ashes rest beside Louisa's on the hill, and we visit often, cherishing his memory. Life is better than I ever imagined. Anna's love healed me. Emma brought me purpose, and together, we built a future full of joy and hope. Every day, I thank the little float plane that brought me to this lake and the woman who made it feel like home.